Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joy Newton. It's Voices North, and I'm coming to you today from Javarona in downtown Yellowknife. Voices North today is pleased to welcome the Executive Director of the NWT Council for Disabilities. And today, Denise Mckee. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Joy.
What a beautiful day in Yellowknife.
It is. It's really nice. It's nice that the heat is broke. For the rest of the country, we're over 30 degrees, so that's great.
It was 34 here the other day, and I've never seen that in my life.
That's right.
So we have a lot of interesting things to talk about, but let's start with your history and how did you make it to Yellowknife?
Well, I'm not originally from here, so I was originally from Hamilton, which we found out the other day we're both from. That's right. Yes. That's right, home of the Tiger Cats. And about 5 years ago, I was the head of a large organization. I've been in the field of disabilities for over 20 years now, and ran Community Living Burlington, very large organization, about 330 employees. About 5 years ago, my husband wanted to take on a different road in his career, so he became a teacher, and he said, you know, I'd like to go to the north and see what it's like to teach there, and I'd like to be in a smaller town. We'd always really been involved in multicultural centers and the GTA, so we had a lot of background in that area.
And Toronto, Greater Toronto
yes,
area. Yes,
in the Greater Toronto area. And so he went originally to a Aklavik.
That's a change.
That is a change. That's right. And he went to Aklavik, and we were still in Hamilton at that time. And he left in September or the end of August. And around November, I got a call, and he said, "Hun, you're going to love it here." And at that point, we were on that really fast track, and the kids were at a point where it was probably the perfect time if we wanted to give them a new experience.
Wow.
And he said, "Come on up." And we started off in Yellowknife and thought, you know, he would work his way down to Yellowknife, but he loved it so much there. He said, you know, come up this far. We all left, and we were up in Aklavik for 4 years. He's been there for 5 years, and it was the greatest place. The people there were absolutely amazing. It was not just an incredible experience, they were welcoming. The kids have many, many friends, so do I, and I was the manager of the elders facility there.
Elders.
Yes.
Interesting topic. We'll get onto that a little later. But
Okay.
more about your background. So you came from Hamilton.
I did. I came from Hamilton, and
How'd you land this gig?
well, when I was in Aklavik, as I said, I was the manager of the elders facility, and unfortunately, although many people wanted it to stay open, and there was quite a rise to keep the elders facility open, but I know we're going to talk about that a little bit later. It was closed, and I took a look at that point just because the kids had been there for quite a few years, and we didn't have the opportunity for them to get a lot of the courses they needed, the advanced courses in school, but more importantly, my son, who has a pretty significant disability, was unable to get the services he needed.
That is such a common experience up here.
Absolutely.
No services for disabled. It's a sad statement, really.
It is,
again,
and so we had to leave all the people that we'd made relationships with. They had friends there. They had close relationships. So my husband actually stayed there, and we came down here so that they could start high school at that point. And we've been here ever since. And before I came, I applied to be the executive director at the Disabilities Council. And I guess they thought that, you know, I was qualified. I absolutely love it. I go into work every day with a smile on my face, and we're really working towards new goals. We just put in a new strategic plan where we're looking at really making sure that people in the communities can stay for as long as they can in their home communities.
Well, let's get right into that, because that involves the subject of the elders. Yes. In a very big way. I know you told me about a meeting that you had in the north with the elders and what they're absolutely scared of. And I think that's a story that needs to be told, so I'm going to let you just go right ahead and tell it, how it started, what you found out, and where they are now.
Well, I think
what's missing up there?
Well, I think that both elders and people with disabilities are kind of, they kind of have one common thread amongst them. When their needs exceed a certain point for where they're living, oftentimes they're directed to go south. And that's a real difficulty, because when you have a disability, or when you're an elder, and generally there are degenerative things as you become an elder. So you might have mobility issues or things like this, arthritis. There may be the onset of dementia. There's a lot of different factors that enter in where you become less able to care for yourself or more dependent. That's right. And at that point, there needs to be, I believe, an intervention of more services within a home community. And what we're looking at is not just home care coming in and doing a couple of hours, or the flip side of your family needs to care for you, because sometimes the needs are too high for that. And the answer can't be that automatically you're going to go south. Yes, I do realize that in some cases it's a requirement to go and seek services outside your own area. I mean, that happens all across Canada if you need service. But it should be a last resort, not a first choice. People should be treated as human beings and respected, and be allowed to stay with their families, with the people they know, in the culture, with the language that they know, in the whole spirit of what, as the elders often told me, was reminiscent of residential school days. That they felt as if here they were in the older times of their life, where they wanted to spend their last years by the land that they grew up in, by the water, so that they could look at it. And Joe Greenland is a great example of that. It's a beautiful location. It looks out over the river, the Mackenzie River. The stories that they could tell you. I learned more from the elders and sitting in chats and stories that they told me than I could have ever if I opened a book and read 1,000 books. That's right. And what came back was that when the facility closed, people were sent south. Some people never came back, and there was a fear of that in the community, and a fear of that among the elders and among people with disabilities, that if you're sent out, you're never going to return. If you do, it's going to probably be buried if you're at a certain point, and it kind of creates an underground kind of mentality where you don't report when your needs are getting higher because you're so afraid of being sent out of the community. Well, I think that, I think obviously there is a greater commitment from government officials and from local communities to take a look at this, because obviously people are speaking out and they're saying this isn't acceptable. However, it's almost a daunting task. Where do we start? So nobody wants to start anywhere. But I think that it's a real requirement for us to take a look at, first of all, looking at people who have actual expertise in that field, to be able to take a look at how do you keep somebody in your area? How do you keep somebody at home? Nobody should be sent out of their home because they can't have a rail on their staircase or a ramp leading up to their building. That's right. And we're not even, those are where the other country has long since, met those needs and gone past. And there are really northern locations in Ontario and across the country that have addressed those issues, and people stay within their home communities.
Well, now, as we discussed the other day, it seems to me like we were doing it the wrong way up here, looking after people with disabilities the wrong way, mental, physical, the aging. How do you see this system compared to what it used to be? Has it changed? Is it moving forward, or is it just stuck in its system that should be scrapped and started over?
Well, I've never met anyone who's committed to the cause that isn't truly committed to the cause. So I believe that when people say that, when they make that commitment that disabilities is an issue and it's something to be addressed, that they are truly committed. I think, though, that there is a lack. There seems to be a gap of understanding in the sense that between home care and long-term care, that there are different settings and multiple different types of models where people can stay in communities for example, in live-in care homes or in supported independent living.
Nights facility.
Right.
Wonderful.
In beautiful, where they still stay in the community, where they can have the level of additional. That's right. The level of additional help that they need.
They're involved in their care, actually, there.
That's right. And you'll find that one of the great difficulties is, Mother Teresa put it very well, one of the greatest forms of poverty is isolation.
That's right.
And the more isolated we become, the less likely that we are. So it's kind of ironic that you take somebody out of a small community where they're surrounded by the people that love them, care for them, they've lived with their whole life, and you move them to a large urban metropolitan area where there's thousands of people around them, but nobody to be there with them. The choice is that they would rather be in their home community. So how do we facilitate that? And we can do that in ways.
It's not that difficult.
It isn't. If we take a look at not a look at, oh, it's so overwhelming and there's no possible way.
It isn't just the money. It's not even the money, I don't think, that's the problem. It's the attitude of upper echelons of government who don't understand disability, who don't realize the importance of being able to stay in your own community and go through whatever it is you have to go through. But they're going to have to open up those purse strings to get those positions written into the government and get people out.
I think definitely that there has to be a monetary commitment from the governments as to, first of all, education. So teaching not only, and that comes from not just federal and territorial governments, but that's local governments, Aboriginal governments, coming together and working together and saying we need to educate people. So first of all, there isn't any kind of stigma attached to people with disabilities, elders with disabilities, elders with dementia. There's a tag that kind of comes along with that less is there, and from employment where people think I'm going to take on more tasks and I'm going to have to do more work, and this is my perception of it. Let's change those perceptions. Let's change those attitudes.
Well, I think you know, I got my job with Mr. Bevington when I was 60 years old and fully disabled, and it feels great.
Yes.
But you got to stand up for what you believe in, and you've got to be able to accept your disability. I've come across in my job a lot of people who haven't yet accepted the fact that they may have a momentary disability or a long-term one, but their own attitude is what makes a lot of it happen.
And part of that is based on, yes, their maybe perhaps what they bring to the table in that, but it's also about how they think other people are going to receive them. Are you going to think, I'm sure that when you meet somebody, if you think that your disability may cause them to discomfort, there's different ways which you present yourself. Humor. And that whole sense is still a matter of feeling like you have to compensate for something, when we really need to change an attitude that we don't need to be compensating. We need to be accepting people's differences.
They need to open up their hearts.
That's right. And so changing the attitudes of people around us so that people can feel comfortable enough to express and self-identify their disability. And then I think we're going to really start to see the numbers that exist, because right now we have a general understanding that 1 in 9 people in the territories, that's a huge percentage.
It is, yes.
You know, if
when you consider the small population we have, yes, it is.
That's right, and it was very eloquently put by Cor Van Dyke during the Elders Parliament when he expressed that if that was an unemployment statistic percentage, this would be considered a crisis, and there would be nothing but focus on. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. And what we're looking at is we're not seeing people self-identifying at a high rate. We're not seeing any kind of tracking. We're not included in national statistics on a great deal, at a great participation level. People generally look at the North and they kind of qualify us with another area, try to equalize us or put us together with somebody else, and then make a general statement about people.
We're a bit of a third world country up here.
We're a bit disjointed from the rest of the country, and I think that, you know, on a federal level they need to take a look and say they like the natural resources, they like the economy that we can produce, and they need to take a look that we need to now care for the people that are there.
Yeah, give us the services that we deserve and every other darn province has.
That's right.
I mean, we may be a territory, but that shouldn't stop us from having what we need.
That's right.
To look after our people, and especially the elders.
And especially with the passing of the UN Convention's human rights for people with disabilities.
I just met Cecilia Kell at lunchtime and congratulated that woman for such a great victory.
When people fight and they stand their ground and they go through that long process, it is really, they take a victory for themselves and they move the marker a bit ahead for everybody.
Everybody.
And when they pass that UN convention,
speaking of the markers getting moved ahead, there's Ms. Hatchett now.
That's right. It's very important that we all take kind of a look at what they came out with, and the fact that everybody needs to be equal, and that accessibility and inclusion are not just something we should strive for and would be a nice thing if we had. They're a human right for each person.
You really have to. I know in Fort Smith years ago when we got it together there, and ended up we won the 5-star award. for accessibility, and that's because we pounded on doors.
Right.
The Disability Council there with Sister Agnes and the lead, we just went out there and we basically shamed those businesses into changing, and then we got Town Hall and we got after them, and they put in a big ramp and everything. So it's a wonderful thing when that happens, but it was total community. Total community.
And I think that people want to buy in. I think that people want to be included. And when you go to the communities, when they called that meeting in Aklavik, it was called for 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon and no one knew about it. And suddenly every business closed and 500 people in a community of about 567 showed up to that meeting because that's how important it was.
Well, with the elders, are they as a community? Are they now banding together to talk to government and social services, the ministers, to find out what we can do about the situation? Because I don't want anybody's grandmother scared to go to see a doctor because she might get shipped out.
Right.
That's not right.
And nor do we want to see any person with a disability hiding inside of a house and not willing to say that this is
with
the level.
With no services like a bar in the bathroom or
that's
whatever.
Right, because they're too afraid of being taken out. And oftentimes this is, but a disability affects everybody from. There are no disability stigmas. It affects every level of income. It affects every age group. It can happen from walking outside and falling to being in a car accident. What you are today may not be at the same level you are tomorrow. So everyone needs to know that this is their issue. And when you talked about the elders and that kind of resiliency when it comes to the elders, there is a little bit of difference in the presentation because they are a very vocal group and they do come out and vote, and so they do have like a mobility and a political influence. Whereas people with disabilities, sometimes by the very disability, have a lack of access to the
accessibility in the high Arctic. I mean, it's really hard for disabled people to get around.
That's right, and it just came out released in a new media analysis that part of the exclusion of people with disabilities is their lack of access to government process and being involved in that. And I think that that's something that we have to look at as well. Now, the Disabilities Council provides, many services for people with disabilities in the smaller communities. So part of what we try to address is letting people know what their rights are and letting people know what the services are.
A lot of people don't know.
No, they don't.
No, because there's never really been an awareness campaign to any degree that people actually noticed what was going on.
Right. This year we did try to get out during Disability Awareness Week. We did try to get out to some of the larger regional centers and some of the smaller communities, but with 33 communities it's a challenge. And with limited funding.
I was just going to say funding cutbacks.
And an office that's quite small. We have maybe 3 to 6 people that are regular staff, and we're serving 1,500 to 2,000 people a year.
Yeah.
So we have and that's just the people that that we're giving direct service, not the people that check out our website and are trying to self-direct.
Not to mention the ones that you haven't found yet.
And the ones that we haven't found, and the ones that perhaps don't know we exist. So I think that this kind of,
that's what we're here
opportunity.
For. Voices North, get the message out there.
Somebody who's maybe housebound and can get on the internet and then says, wow, I didn't even realize that this exists. Maybe I'll give a call and see if there's something that somebody can do to help me.
Give them your phone number in Yellowknife.
Our phone number in Yellowknife is 867-873-8230, or they can check us out on the web at www.nwtability.ca.
I love that word.
And what we really, really want people to do is to start to speak out and tell us what the issues are.
Yes.
Let us know and really have a commitment so that when we sit with, Minister Bolio, when we come to Mr. Bevington's office and we sit down with him. And the one thing is that all the leaders have been more than willing to sit down with us and more than willing to discuss the issues, that we can really present this is what's going on.
We have to take away their fear,
That's right. And it's not, people are going to make mistakes along the way, but we have to do what's right. It's not about whether we're going to make a mistake and not move forward. It's about doing the right thing. And if for all the time we make a decision towards doing the right thing, I don't think we make mistakes. I think people appreciate and forgive them.
Well, they're growing experiences. They build character.
That's right. And I've been through this process before.
Yeah, and organizations get character. They build. Right. They're just like people.
That's
a lot of people don't realize that. They just think it's a square building,
That's right. And this is not too different from the early 90s in other parts of the country. in their approach of having to then start to meet the needs of people, because they realize that these are going to become human rights cases.
Well, we've got to deinstitutionalize everybody.
That's right.
That's all there is to it.
That's right. There is very comfortable, multi-level approaches at being able to support people who are at different levels of ability. And it is not just a two-tiered system where it comes from you're either at home or you're in a long-term care.
Right.
We can't have the belief that, well, first of all, no economy, no government can sustain long-term care as their mode of operandi, nor can they sustain sending people south. I mean, sometimes the price tag for that is $250,000 to $500,000 per person per year.
The thing is, you could give a person, a qualified person, $130,000, $140,000 a year to take care of people that would have been costing like $200,000 a person to take them south. And they're not with their families, and they're not eating the food they're familiar with. Their whole life has changed, and they're like 85 years old. Is that fair?
That's right.
No.
And so when you're dealing with somebody who has, and I mean, we had an elder facility, but some of ours were pretty spry, young 60s, but they had a mobility issue or things like that. But oftentimes I think that when I first started there, and it was a little bit different, I was told that people don't think that we can do this, and people don't understand what we do here. And I will tell you that I worked for a long time in a large urban center where we had all the bureaucracy you could possibly have, and the red tape and the log notes, and there wasn't one person within that facility that I wouldn't let care for one of my parents. That their level of dedication to the people and that were there was absolutely incredible. Pristine hygiene practices. They cook, when somebody asked for something and traditional foods, they would gladly bring it from home. The community participated in creating cultural experiences and bringing people out to them, and this is what people thrived on.
Yeah, well, that's what's going to happen here when they finally get it together and get it going.
Well, I was very lucky to have participated or been there when somebody passed away actually in the facility, and it was one of the most wonderful passing through to another, to the other world, because the family was there, they were saying prayers, we were there as a complement to support, and people were there till midnight. Nobody was asked to stay till midnight, nobody was forced to stay. People stayed there to support the family. There were songs, there were stories, there were
great,
it was
great
a wonderful
closure for people.
That's right. And what a difference it is to somebody who perhaps is in a room by themselves in a hospital where they don't have access. This is a big geographical area. One of our uniqueness is also one of our great challenges.
Oh, it is.
So when you move somebody out of a community, it's not necessarily like in the South where you can get in the car and just hop in and drive over and have an afternoon visit and drive back. Sometimes that will be the last time you will see that person. Now imagine it's your child. I couldn't imagine myself. My child being taken away because somebody couldn't give him the services here, and being told the only way that he could get it.
Pretty frightening.
It is pretty frightening. And when you talk about young people, you talk about their education and their access to education and services. We just recently went through that decision where money was taken away from one area of disabilities and given to early childhood intervention. Well, the Disabilities Council, we've been providing early intervention services forever, so we understand the importance of it. However, you don't take from Peter to pay Paul.
No,
because what happens is
you reach deeper into those pockets, Mr. Government.
And those adolescents, those youth in school that now don't have the supplementary services, there's some school boards that just couldn't afford to. And we don't hear necessarily about that.
There's a lot of issues.
There are a lot of issues.
But the one thing that I do like about your outfit is I love your ability.ca.
Yes.
To me, never mind disability, we've all got abilities.
That's right.
My line used to be, I don't need an elbow to sing, right? Because you can always make money singing if you can't work or walk. And it worked, I did it. Mm-hmm. So I'm very much a supporter of ability.ca.
Yes.
I want to thank you for coming out today. There's more to talk about. I would like to ask you to come back We've talked about the elders mostly today, and I would like you to pick some more issues that you know find very, very important, that you want to talk to people out there so that they all understand and their ability to communicate back.
Absolutely.
Through us, through you, however we have to do it.
Excellent.
So if you'd like to do that and keep Mr. Bevington's office informed of what's happening, because he's very interested and he's looking forward to his meeting with you whenever we manage to pull it together to set it up.
And we're looking forward to working with anybody who's going to progress the needs and the abilities of people with disabilities.
And I'm just letting you know that since I used to work there a long time ago, back in '91, if you need a volunteer, you know how to reach me.
Excellent.
As a matter of fact, you're one of the few that know how to reach me. So.
Well, you know what? I'm going to write that down.
No, please do.
Absolutely.
Please do. As long as you don't ask me to lift anything,
that's right.
I'm fine.
No, we can use volunteers on every basis. And I'd just like to reiterate again our phone number and our website.
Please do that.
So that people know. It's 867-873-8230, and our website is www.nwtability.ca, and we're here to help people. You don't have to identify yourself. If you have an issue or you have anything, that just even to talk to see what's going on, to have somebody to speak with, you call us and we'll be there for you.
Denise, thank you, ma'am.
Very much.
Thank you.
We
look forward to seeing you again. Voices North, Joy Newton, coming to you this afternoon from Java Roma in Yellowknife. Thank you very much. We'll be back probably next Friday, or we might take a holiday. Either way, we're on the net. Have a great day.